just because we're changing the format of the show a little bit does not mean we're going to change the excellent intro and the perfect thumbnails. Those I refuse to change. If anybody complains about it in the chat, too bad. But yes, we were delayed 109 seconds. Thank you, everyone in the chat. But we are here. We're back for another exciting episode of Pony Express Radio. Joining me tonight is Mr. Grant Brooks and Mr. TJ Martinell. How you gentlemen doing this evening?
I'm doing good.
Alrighty.
Doing well.
Alrighty, good. Well, before we tackle the story tonight of the quality leering centers and all the other nonsense going around in this country, let us first get through our shillings for the evening. So at the very start, of course, we announced this last week, but very important to remind everyone once again that our good friend, Mr. George Bagby, all the super chats for this stream tonight. Yeah, this is the official picture from Mr. Bagby's Give, Send, Go, or is it no, the GoFundMe. Yeah, so please, if you can, throw in some dollary dues for our good friend, Mr. George Bagby, who is having vehicular trouble right now. So we want to help him out as best we can. Fellow friend of the club, always been very, very good to us. So please give your money to Mr. Bagby. The GoFundMe is in the link in the description. It is also pinned in the chat, and we will probably periodically drop it in the live chat as well for everyone to send money to our good friend. In addition to that, you can support Mr. Bagby by going over to Tall Man Books. Mr. Bagby has done some excellent work resurrecting some turn of the they were actually late 19th century and then turned into the 20th century books about American history that are excellent reads. In fact, he's been doing excellent work bringing these back into print. Really difficult for a lot of these. You guys can find them, so head on over to Tall Man Books to support our fellow friend Mr. Bagby. And with that out of the way, let us get into our other sponsors. Of course, we here at OGC are fans of nicotine. We are friends of Big Tobacco. If you guys want your nicotine fix, please head on over to Alp Nicotine Pouches. Link is in the description. Also, if you want your caffeine fix, head on over to Fox & Sons Coffee. He is Mr. Fox & Sons is actually a OGC member now, member of a chapter recently. So help a fellow man of the club and get yourself a nice caffeine fix. Link is in the description once again. And of course, you guys also need to get ripped for White Boy Winter, because eventually it's going to change into White Boy Summer again. So head on over to Axios Remote Fitness and Coaching. Link is in the description right there if you guys want to get shredded for this summer. And of course, if anyone is ever wondering why all the OGC guys at all of our conferences are dressed like absolute chads, all right, you guys need to head over to our haberdasher, Mr. M.S. Vindrillo. The link is in the description as well. If you guys want some tailor custom-made suits, all other products like nice ties, pocket squares, anything else you could desire to be looking absolutely chad, definitely head on over to Mr. Vindrillo Suits. Link is in the description as well there too. All right, gents. Man, we're doing such good work here. We're just reading out ads like crazy here, man. Everyone wants to be on the OGC train, and you can be too if you head over to theoldgloryclub.com. Mr. Charlemagne has done excellent work on our website. We've got our map of the United States on there. You can look and see where local chapters are in your area. If there isn't one, all you need is 5 fellow chads, Americans of good character, and you too can create an OGC chapter for yourselves if you shoot us over an email at theoldgloryclub@gmail.com. All right, with that out of the way, Mr. Martinell, you wanted to come on tonight to talk to us about these quality leering centers, or what people are more familiar known with is this massive draining dry of the American Treasury. I don't know if people saw this recently, but Secretary of Treasury, I think that's who he is, right? Besant, is that who he is? Or Interior? I forget his official title. Which one is he?
Yeah, that's right. He's Treasury Secretary.
Yeah, Treasury. That's who I thought it was. He came out last week and posed that by his numbers, 10% of the U.S. federal budget is stolen every single year or lost in various corruption games. And with all the numbers we're seeing coming out of just Minnesota, where it's billions upon billions of dollars that have been stolen, most of it sent abroad throughout these schemes with the Somali community. But it's not just Minnesota. And Mr. Martinell wanted to come on and tell us what is actually going on in the Pacific Northwest. So, Mr. Martinell, take it away.
Yeah, so I think it was right after Christmas. There was people, including colleagues of mine, that were going to child daycare centers on paper and knocking on the door, and they would say, "This is not a daycare center," or "There's no kids," or what have you, right? And I think that the thing that's important to understand is that human behavior is a more telling indication of something than any tangible evidence you're ever going to have on something. So the response from many of our elected officials has been swift, immediate, and very harsh. I mean, we had our attorney general. I don't know how much people on listening have really been following it, but our attorney general issued a statement very quickly saying that harassment of these Somalian daycare centers will result in like legal action. So basically, like threatening, you know, what many people would consider to be threatening reporters, journalists, and citizen journalists. And it drew a response from the Assistant Attorney General of the United States saying, like, if you go after these people, if you go after journalists, we're going to go after you. So that's, and then we've got like Kate Wilson, the newly elected mayor of Seattle, just adamantly saying we're not going to investigate anything. I had a colleague of mine also get called on the carpet because she was the one going out to these daycare centers, and a state lawmaker's response was so harsh towards her at a press conference that our big boss weighed in for a story and said, "Hey, this is like, she's doing her job, and this is not okay." So I either they're not used to this kind of scrutiny or there's something going on. And I've been looking at it from an investigative reporter perspective from the top down. I've been looking more at the state agency itself. What are the mechanisms they have in place to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't go on? And the stakes in this case are really high for Washington State because the program is done through a department called the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And they have a on-site inspection of every single licensed daycare provider, and they do auditing. And the inspections are unannounced. So if there's fraud, it means it's a huge deal because it shouldn't happen. And what's crazy is our state auditor is doing an audit of the department, this department of its childcare services. So if there's something that comes out that's bad, a lot of people are going to be looking not looking good in our state. They're doubling down really hard on the idea that there's nothing going on here. And so I think that what we are very likely to find is a lot of fraud going on. And I mean, I can't talk too much about some of my work, but we're going to find out to what extent people knew that this was going on beforehand and did nothing about it. So that's kind of what's going on in Washington State. Washington State is really putting itself out there as one of those states that's really come out hard against the federal government, the current administration. And so I think we're very, very likely to discover that there's fraud. The question is how much fraud. I mean, I think it was $9.5 billion out of Minnesota alone on this one program, or like, what was it? The Somalian fraud. I mean, how much did we spend on the Iraq war? Someone remind me, right?
Trillions.
But like 9.5 billion for one thing. It's just, and a word that a lot of you should keep in mind is the word hawala, Hawala. This is how the Somalians have been stealing money from us, the American people, and funneling it back to Somalia through different bank accounts in different countries, Amsterdam, London, New York, you name it. And I think that what's going to happen, this is just my gut instinct, guys. I think that when the American people fully realize what's been done to them, like 100 million people being deported is the moderate position. That's going to be.
Yeah, I saw that there was a bill introduced to strip citizenship of any naturalized that was involved in fraud. And I'm not optimistic about that bill making it through the Congress, but at a bare minimum, that's the sort of thing that should be pushed because the scale of this fraud is staggering, especially when you consider that client groups like the Somalis, okay, there were no Somalis, statistically speaking, in the United States before the 1990s.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they literally just got here and they're already embezzling all this kind of money immediately. I mean, and it's not just, oh, we're going to wire our money back overseas. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but did you see the suitcases full of money that they are finally now saying, oh, there might be something a little suspicious about this, when there's reports of suitcases of money flying out of the international airport in Minneapolis dating all the way back to 2015.
Honestly, man, I this is me just kind of venting a little bit because I mean, there was that, and then we've been covering it. I don't want to just sidetrack too much, but this isn't coinciding with that Compact magazine article about the extent to which millennial men were systemically discriminated against in the workplace, starting like, and it, for me as a millennial, I got to experience this firsthand. So you read that, and then you read about how all these people come here and steal all of our money. And I'm just thinking, I just want to raise an army and go basically destroy the countries where these people came from to set an example. If you scam us, we're going to basically remove you from the face of the planet, and we're going to build a resort for millennial men who got screwed over for the last how many years. Like, and I gotta say, like, again, not to distract, but the fact that JD Vance is a millennial is probably the most understated fact of our political situation. This is a guy who understands what's going on, and so I don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years, but I do have to say, I don't think people fully realize how angry millennial men are at the situation, and this just compounds it. If you're under a certain age, you don't know what things used to be like, but millennial men were old enough, and this was funny. It was a boomer told me, and he was being sympathetic, but he goes, man, you got it rough. You got to see America in its sunset and in its twilight. And it's like, yeah, we know what it looked like, and it's gone. And now in a couple of years, by the time the 2028 election, millennial men are my hope is you're going to see them start asserting themselves. But no, we're going to go after these scammers and these frauds and shysters and charlatans and snake oil salesmen, people who've stolen our money and shipped it overseas. We're going to go take that money back one way or another, and we don't care. It's not going to be like Iraq, where we went over there on false pretenses. We're going to be very open. We're coming here to take back what you stole from us, and we don't care, right? And we're gonna, and unlike the global war on terror, we're gonna treat our veterans like royalty, and they're gonna get the Cadillac, of everything in terms of like benefits and healthcare, and we're gonna take care of our people because we lived through 20 years of this nonsense. So, I think the reason why they're doubling down so hard is because they realize that there's no way out. It's either it's everything or nothing.
And the whole, these things are connected. People talk about the 90s as this sort of, the phrase meritocracy is used, right? Like race-blind meritocracy. If you grew up in the United States of America and you're a millennial, never lived in a race meritocracy. The law has been specifically built to discriminate against white men. That has been legally encoded in this country. Affirmative action was struck down 2 years ago. Every year previously, it has been this. It has been the law of the land to discriminate against white men in every facet of public life. And this is connected because you see the way that Tim Walz, who knew that the fraud existed. There was this thing that came out. Okay, the state of Minnesota did an investigation of the fraud and documented an enormous amount of the fraud that was going on. And then Walz basically called in and throw smoke and sand over everyone's eyes and say, actually, no, it's fine. It's not nearly as bad as anyone says. Just buried the investigation. And how does Walz answer basically being called the incredible levels of corruption? He simply says, oh, well, white men are the ones who really commit fraud.
I don't know if you saw faggot. Well, I don't know if you saw his statement today, but the reality is like, it's so funny. And for the record, I am not comparing the Confederate cause to modern day. It's so funny how these guys, the same people who melted down the Robert E. Lee statue and, say that Confederates should all have been killed and they were traitors, whatever, saying the exact, like using the same rhetoric against the federal government on a legitimate issue, which is immigration and repelling invaders. And it's so funny how they're like, can you imagine federal agents going into states where they just don't share your values? I'm like, yeah, we kind of know. We know
happens all the time.
Like, dude, we already saw this movie. It came out in 1861. Like, yes. I was telling people, I go, a lot of these people who sit there and praise Lincoln as being the greatest president that the country ever had, they're about to find out what made him so great, and I don't think they're going to like the results. Like, I was telling
you don't even have to go that far back. You could just point out Kennedy, Eisenhower, and others for desegregation purposes. Well,
yeah,
or you could even say George H.W. Bush for Rodney King. It's like, I'm literally going to send in the Marines. It's like, oh, Donald Trump is really breaking the mold here by sending in ICE officials. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I'm like, guys, I was sitting down with somebody and I go, do you want me to list off all the things Lincoln did? And for the record, Lincoln nor the Congress ever declared a state of war because Lincoln believed that the Confederate Southern states could not legally secede. So he couldn't declare war on his own country. He still legally considered them to be part of the United States. So there was never a declaration of war. So everything he did during our, the war between the states or the war of Northern aggression or whatever people want to call it, that was done without a declaration of war. So Trump has so much historical precedent. And I almost wonder if it's supreme irony and like poetic justice that they've propped up, regardless of how people want to feel about Lincoln, they propped him up as the savior of the Union, and Southerners were evil. And, my side was from Chicago at the time, so they fought on the Union side. But like, I'm just sitting there like, yeah, they're like, oh, Robert E. Lee was a traitor and screw him or whatever. And then they're like, oh, we got to resist federal aggression. I'm like, the cognitive dissonance going on is a level like Freud would want to study for a book. I just find it baffling. But
all I'm saying is that Minnesota needs to be reconstructed.
I'm actually, it's funny. I was telling a buddy that I don't think I unironically think that many states need to be reconstructed. They don't need to be reconstructed for this, obviously, again, not for the same reasons, but because there's so many foreigners scamming and running you have like, what's her name running Boston? It's saying Somalians built this country. It's like, honey, I'm like, Trump should have done this is the kind of thing that a little bit frustrates me. He should be doing what he did to that Venezuela president to foreigners in elected positions in our country.
Yeah, we all know where Ilhan
as insane Omar, as this is to say, the foreigners in our country committed nominally under our justice system have far more quote unquote legal protection than any foreign leader.
Right. That's the crazy part about President Trump is he has more control over other countries than he does over the United States. That's that to me.
Yeah, one of the.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would just say like so.
I was going to say real quick. Go ahead. Sorry.
God, you are. Jeez. Major delays. Yeah.
Yeah. I've worked with the 10th Amendment Center for a long time. I haven't written anything recently, but like, this whole idea of federalism and checks on power and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just looking at the situation and saying, look, guys, if everything in the system rewards the president and incentivizes him to have greater authority over other countries and their leaders than our own country, what do you think is going to happen? We may not like it, but it's like this goes back to this issue of great. He can go. It's kind of like what I think I used the example with you, RedHawk, in a private chat, but Julius Caesar built up his army, the 13th Legion, in Gaul. Like he was in foreign land when he built up the army that he would use to conquer Rome, and because he had greater freedom over there than back in Rome. And so, I mean, if I was Trump and I was kind of Machiavellian, I would go build an army, send them overseas, give them incentives to be loyal to me. But then again, look at like the rhetoric coming from the Democrats about ICE. Like they're literally by their own rhetoric creating a 13th Legion for him.
Yes, and to this point, the biggest roadblock in the way of any progress being made by the Trump administration on these things, the reason why these fraudsters have more legal protection than Nicolas Maduro does, is because of the judiciary. The judiciary in this country is fundamentally broken. The quote-unquote justice system is an incredible travesty that is ruled by essentially leftist ideologues who have no concern for actual justice being served, but who are instead political pawns in what they view as the resistance to the galactic empire or something of that effect.
Right.
Like the way that these judges, in the Somali case specifically, there were a bunch of these people in Minnesota who were convicted of a staggering amount of fraud, convicted in a court of law by a jury, and then this judge just threw out the conviction. Nope, sorry. They're the special people. They don't get to be convicted for crimes.
And this is how you get to authoritarianism, where, and I've always told people this for years, and just obviously nobody listens because everybody just they don't listen. But I say, look, man, certain figures in history do not come out of nowhere. There's a context, and the context is always a crisis and a legitimate grievance that's going on. And so if you don't want certain bad peoples to get into power, you don't give, or, and even if you think they're not bad, in the case of a lot of people, like I think that Vlad the Impaler from Transylvania, I don't think he was a bad guy. I don't think that Franco was a bad guy, but they were brutal, but their times were demanded that they be brutal. There's no choice. You don't get a choice when you're
not TJ. Those men just did a murder. How could you justify that? That's all those guys were doing.
Yeah, it's like I was talking to a buddy about Vlad the Impaler, and I go, look, this was a tiny country surrounded by one of the largest empires in human history. He had to be brutal, because that's literally the only choice that you have. Same thing with Franco. He was dealing with these communist scumbags who were digging up the bodies of nuns and like shooting them. Like these are not normal people. And it's frustrating to see how the ICE raids, people are getting all squeamish about it. I'm like, guys, we have had the largest invasion in human history. And people don't want to call it an invasion. It's an invasion. We were invaded. You don't remove people. It's so funny. The same people who praise General Sherman's March to the Sea, which by his own admission was a war. He said he would be executed, according to what he was taught at West Point, for war crimes. And they're all praising him and saying he was great at going against the traitors and the insurrection.
There needs to be a Rubio March to the Superior in Minnesota right now.
And what's so ironic is
seriously.
It's just like, and so then they get squeamish because they arrest somebody. Or the same people who might be sympathetic to Julius Caesar. What do you think he did to the Helvetii when they came crying for help, because they didn't like the Hun in Eastern Europe that were pushing them forward? Julius Caesar said, no, you cannot cross this river. We're not allowing you into our country, right? It was awful. I'm sure it was awful. But guess what? His army wasn't destroyed like the Eastern Roman Empire's army was destroyed when they did allow refugees across. That was like, 1,000 years later, or a century later, there's this famous, I don't remember the name of the battle, but the Eastern Roman Empire did allow a bunch of refugees over. They formed an army and then destroyed the entire Eastern Roman Empire's army. And so it's like, no, guys, this is not I don't understand. I don't get it. How can you read history and not realize history is violent, history is brutal, and we've been living in I think it's because we've been living in such a relatively peaceful time that people don't understand. We got to this peaceful time through incredible acts of violence. The Old West was insanely violent against criminals, and the result is you have a polite society. And so, yeah, you're going to have
it's like when you look at the statistics in that book that everyone likes to point out, it's like the Not So Wild West, when they do a comparison of like the peak of like the crime rates in the American frontier and contrast it with, modern day Chicago, modern day New York. It's not even close.
No, because they had no patience, and they had no time for criminals. It's like, oh, you stole a horse. Great. You're a horse thief. We're going to kill you. We're executing you. What was it? That scene from like the Lonesome Dove, where they hang their own buddy because he stole horses. Like, sorry, man, we got like we don't get to make exceptions to the rule. So I think that what's going to radicalize, going back to the whole Somalian daycare thing, I think what's going to radicalize people is this realization to the extent of which our national debt, which we as U.S. citizens are tied to, because we have to pay the income tax regardless of where we live. You can live in Antarctica or Timbuktu or in Sri Lanka or wherever. You still owe the income tax.
Yeah, that is crazy how America's, I think it's America, and there's like 2 other countries on the entire planet that will tax you no matter where you are in the world.
Which means that you're tied, you are financially liable for the national debt. And honestly, that's going to radicalize a lot of people when they realize what's going on. And I think on top of that is the just sheer brazenness of the foreign population in our country. Like that the mayor of Boston, who's clearly she's got Chinese spy written on her, like the vacancy sign on the Nowhere Motel, like and then I just saw today there was some Chinese spy who was first of all, why do we have foreign nationals in our military? Like what idiot thinks like it's like Trump, change that tomorrow, kick them out, and if they're caught with espionage, shoot them on sight. Just no.
Well, you see, TJ, what's actually happening here is that these Somalians, because their head is shaped like a light bulb, it just means that they have like really good ideas to contribute to our GDP, and that's why they're here. You're just not getting with the program, man.
Dude, I it's so funny. It was Christmas season last month, and I was like, yeah, if Jingle All the Way was they could make a Jingle All the Way sequel with a Black Hawk Down sequel. It's like the Turtle Man's gone, man. I'll be outside.
Boom,
boom.
Yeah, the story is so incredible. We literally like our soldiers.
Yeah, we paid for our own invasion
to give them food, and the repayment we get is them coming en masse and literally defraud us. Because I mean, it is every facet of life. All of the great things about this country, the value has been built by generations of virtuous actions. Every bit of that, whether it comes to money, whether it comes to social trust, whether it comes to locking doors at night, every bit of that is being strip mined by foreigners who know what they're doing and have no remorse. It is a us or them equation here. Like the reason why all these people in Minnesota, like the point of hypocrisy or stuff is like these people have no principles. They don't. It's literally just stealing from you. They think that as long as they can steal from you, they're going to. If you're not gonna, if you're not going to push them down and take your bike back, they're just gonna keep stealing your bike.
Yeah, no, it's.
And then and then at the same time say that the chief bike stealers in the United States are white men.
I think that they're just.
Exactly.
Well, I think the thing that, again, we're in some sense we're seeing a conflict between 2 different groups of people, and it's not racially based per se, but it's a high trust society versus a low trust society. High trust society people don't lie, and they don't double down on a lie no matter what evidence you point in front of them. Whereas with low trust, they lie until there's consequences. And I think that we're going to get to the point where there's a person who gets into power where he just says, yeah, I'm not interested this is something that's kind of dark, but like something to think about. Charlie Kirk tried to talk to his enemies and got shot in the neck in front of his 2-year-old daughter. Anders Breivik from Norway killed 70 of his enemy, including very young, like youth, he's still alive, and he could theoretically be paroled and run for public office, and then go kill more of his enemies through the state. So, like, I was thinking about that the other day and just thought, the message is being sent: don't talk to your enemies, don't try to reason with them. You use brute force and use power to just impose your will upon them, and don't argue with them. And that's why that's kind of why I don't debate politics with people. Not that I typically don't debate with people, because they talk to me for about 5 seconds and realize that I know way more about what actually goes on than what they think goes on. But it's just like, yeah, I'm not interested in arguing with you. It goes back to what Sam Hyde said. He's like, I'm not willing to have a discussion about what an American is with an Indian. I'm not willing to have the discussion. It's like, yes, we're not debating these issues with foreigners. It's like debating, with somebody who you don't know about.
The sky's blue. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to say we're done talking.
Yeah, which is obviously the case. I mean, and there's a lot of takes that have been going around over the last week or so in wake of what is happening in Minnesota, right? I mean, this Renee Good woman gets shot. She gets killed. There was another shooting with another guy who went and attacked an ICE officer just yesterday with a shovel. Apparently that guy's alive and in stable condition. Last night, I don't know if anyone saw the clips going around, but they broke into all of the ICE vehicles stationed outside of these hotels they were staying. They stole federal documents. They stole weapons. They stole laptops. Obviously destroyed all the vehicles in the process too. But it's just okay, so all right, they're basically calling the president's bluff. They're calling ISIS bluff, basically saying, okay, we're going to be in black anarchists. We're going to go riot in the streets. We're going to put on our Antifa masks. We're going to destroy your property. We're going to steal your weapons. No, what are you going to do about it? And now we have President Trump truthed out on Truth Social that he's thinking of instituting the Insurrection Act unless Tim Walz gets things under control. And it's well, I mean,
I think that's why I know some people might be cynical about Trump, but one, I gotta say this: look at how he's been able to bounce back from pretty much every time everyone thinks he's out for the count, he bounces back. The guy's been impeached twice. He's been shot at. He's been almost assassinated.
He's had more second chances than any president ever.
Yeah, I'm not going to say, I don't know what the end result is going to be of him, but every time everybody thinks it's all over, it's we're never so back, right? So I think that's why Tim Walz is freaking out, is that he knows that Trump probably is not bluffing. And I think, again, I'm not trying to be too white pilled in a black pill moment, but I think the thing is that the fact that he's president now, go back to 2021 and tell someone that Trump would be president of the United States and we'd be experiencing what's going on right now. I think most people would have, including on the right, would have said no. I think, again, I'm not trying to tell people, trust the plan or anything like that, but he's managed to survive politically in ways that is just I've never seen before in a politician.
I think one thing that is really important.
Go ahead.
I think one thing that is really important to discuss here, and we need to keep the pressure on in this regard, is that it seems like the only way we're actually going to get the administration to do what needs to be done on this account, to actually, go forth with the Insurrection Act, bring the hurt on these left-wingers, is to actually have more goading on and more escalation from the left. So when you're seeing calls from Tim Walz, who knows his ass is completely on the line here, saying, oh, right, well, can we go back to being nice with everyone now? We really need to calm down, when just last week he was calling everybody a white supremacist for looking into this stuff. It's oh no, because they have to signal to their base too, because number one, frankly, they're afraid of them, and frankly they kind of should be. I wish the Republicans were as afraid of their base as the Democrats were. Wouldn't that be nice? But they're obviously afraid that they have to signal that, oh, we're going to fight the administration, we're going to fight for the poor brownoids that are stealing all this money or what have you. But that is continually to rally and rile up their base, and they're becoming more and more bold. I mean, I couldn't believe the stuff that I was seeing last night where they were just breaking into ICE vehicles and they weren't just getting like mowed down immediately. Like there's one video of these guys pulling out a weapons locker and breaking it with a
I gotta say,
in
though,
the middle of the street. It's like, holy shit.
And
I gotta say
that escalation, and then I'll let you say your piece real quick, TJ, but that escalation is something that has to be answered. The utility of someone like Donald Trump is that he represents the idea that there is still progress possible through the traditional system such as it exists, e.g., that you could have a Justice Department indict Tim Walz and Keith Ellison and the rest of these people who are filthy as sin about this, that you could have a federal bureaucracy that deports millions of people, that you could have a system in which people actually face justice. The reason why Donald Trump is so universally hated by our enemies is he represents to them, you know, the archetype that they hate of the father who actually brings accountability for the things that they do. And in order for that to continue, Trump must continue to bring accountability. Tim Walz must be indicted for his role in this. And I think there's a good chance that he will be.
Yeah, I think that I think the thing that Trump is good at is letting his enemies do his work for him, where they get so radical in their behavior that they give him the pretext he needs to do very drastic measures. So, I mean, they kill an ICE agent or they do something crazy. He has the precedent and he has the context. And this is why I think Tim Walz is freaking out. If some idiot protester or whatever domestic terrorist kills an ICE agent, great. He has a martyr to use as a pretext to basically take over Minnesota. I mean, every time people think that, oh, Trump isn't going to do this, he does something incredibly radical because the context allowed him to do it. And I think that that's kind of the thing that I've noticed about him in the 10 years he's been in, like, you know, the presidential, you know, in politics, is he waits for his enemies to give him the context to do stuff that he would never otherwise be able to do. And that's why I think if they do something really, and they know this, they know that if these people are very careful for the most part about not giving him his Fort Sumter. You know, they go, imagine if some guy went and shot up a bunch of ICE agents in Minnesota, right?
And they're certainly trying to. I mean,
yeah, but Tim Walz knows that he's the one who's going to get dragged out of his bed. Like, and who knows if that was done?
The thing is like it does appear to be, you know, that at least with like things like the summer of Floyd, you know, there was at least some direction coming from the Democrats as to, you know, oh, how we're going to be able to use this to our advantage. But on this one, where it's hitting a little bit close to home, and even like Tim Walz is saying, oh, well, this is getting a little hot for me. I'm literally just not even going to run for politics. I mean, let us not forget, I mean, this man was just a couple million votes away from being the vice president of the United States. You know? So which is very, very odd. You know, it just tells you how much like the corruption runs deep. If this guy who was just about to be vice president of the United States has now decided to drop out of politics altogether over this stuff, I mean, you know, there's something there. You know, there's something deeper. So, I mean, they're definitely trying to get a hold of this thing, and you've seen it in the messaging over the last couple of days, at least from his office. You know, the various like Brownoids and everything who are pretty close at this point, I'd say, to like just forming their own coalition and just not really even dealing with, you know, like the more sensible ones who are a little bit more politically savvy on this. You know, but hey, I mean, hey, they closed the schools so they can get the little kids out there to be human shields. So, you know, it doesn't.
So that's another structural thing that changed, even like compared to 4 years ago, or I guess 6 years ago at this point, is right, like the USAID money being cut. Because we know that the reason why they're able to get something like a Summer of Floyd, okay, there is no you do not spontaneously get that many people together. It requires a great deal of organization. You have to pay people to do that, to help organize them. And so what has happened with USAID being cut, what's happened with CRS being defunded, these are actual important steps progress forward that significantly diminishes the left's ability to create the sort of perfect storms that have worked in their favor. I think that if they could pull off another summer of Floyd, they absolutely would do so, and they wouldn't be in the position of begging for the temperature to go down in this like pathetic David French-esque appeal. But they're not in the position of strength relative to where they were. And that's something that you have to press your advantage as long as you have it. And Minnesota is home to more NGOs, I think, relative to their state population, I think, than any other state.
Yeah, it's more than any other state.
That's another thing that has to be done is at some point by somebody. Who knows if it's going to be Trump or the next guy, But these NGOs, these charities, these Lutheran services, the Catholic, whatever, they all need to be crushed. And I think the thing that, and this is going to be difficult for a lot of people who have strong religious convictions. I'm just going to say this. If your church is a 501c3, it's a nonprofit. And you have to look at it as a nonprofit. And I understand that that's going to probably bother some people, but like, you have to realize when people, and there's a certain and it's taken me years to figure this out. People do things out of incentives, not out of moral virtue or like what's right. So people who go to work for government do so because they don't want to have to actually fight to keep their job. They get union protection. They basically can't be fired unless they, commit a felony. A lot of people go into ministry.
Sometimes no.
Yeah. A lot of people go into ministry because it's nonprofit. You really don't have to compete. And depending on the situation, you're dealing with the property doesn't have any property taxes. Again, it varies, but like, you just have to understand what you're dealing with. And so I'm not saying that religious organizations should be subject to, property taxes or should be taxed. I don't think that that's obviously what's going on, but like, it's a great place. A lot of these charities and nonprofits are great places for bad people to hide. And you either have two choices. You get rid of them or you get rid of the people in them, the bad people in them, I would say. So that's kind of my thought on that.
And Trump did a fantastic job of this, right? Where he's like, okay, refugee resettlement, but it's only going to be 7.5K people, and they're going to be white Afrikaners. And you saw the Episcopal Church, which has for much of its history been a quasi-state church for Washington, D.C., and for the sort of like ruling elite to the degree that existed. They threw in the towel. They're just like, no, we won't do refugee. If you force us to resettle white Christians who are actually net contributors to this country, we just will refuse to do any refugee resettlement whatsoever. You have to put that to every one of these NGOs to the degree that you can. You have to force every single one of them to either go along with you in accomplishing your mission and realizing your goals that make the political landscape more favorable to you, or throw in the towel and force them to take their ball and go home.
Yeah, man, it's crazy how again, it goes back to what Trump is able to do. He's able to get people to show their true selves. They take their mask off. And I saw this 10 years ago where a lot of people I knew started saying things where I'm like, wait a minute, you actually believe this? And they didn't think it was a big deal. I'm like, no, it's not good.
Nice grandfather clock.
Beautiful clock.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. At least it's 6 o'clock and not noon. But yeah, you're listening to what they're saying, and you're like, holy cow! Like, I've known you for years, and you're telling me this now. But that's kind of what Trump. I think that's what Trump has done as a political candidate and a president. Is he's gotten the biggest accomplishment of his presidency and his entire public life has been getting people to openly admit what they actually believe on certain issues that are like existential, like national, the whether or not we have a nation or not type thing, where people be like, yeah, no, like the whole immigration issue, where it's basically like we need to keep bringing in immigrants because they're the future of the country, as opposed to the founding stock being the past, present, and future. And this idea that we need to be replaced by other people because they're hardworking. And I always go back to the same saying from Christmas Vacation. They work really hard. Well, so do washing machines.
Yeah, and when you drill down to this, and again, this is one of the ways that Trump has benefited us greatly. You drill down to this, okay, like all the BS, oh, they're hard workers, this, that, or the other thing. No, it's not any of that. It's that they want to get rid of you. They want to get rid of white men who have these Republican virtues and have a vision of the country that is legible to their ancestors. They want to turn this place into something else entirely. And in order to do that, you can't still be around. The entire point is just getting rid of you. All the reasons, it's just window dressing. They'll just come up with a different one. You see this even with the whole like labor thing. It's like, well, actually, because you say, well, if you pay them the same as a good American, then obviously we could do the job. And then it becomes, oh, well, actually, Americans, they don't have good work ethic because, they have sleepovers instead of going to Kumon every day, and it's just, it's ridiculous. I mean, you just see that all of it is just window dressing. It's just window dressing to say that all of the riches that your ancestors built should belong to me because I showed up here yesterday. And me and my 20 closest cousins would really like that.
Yeah, no, I think that, especially for guys my age, I think the frustration is the extent to which we've been defrauded, but also betrayed. Because this occurred when our elders, our parents, and whoever were like, oh, this is great because my house value is going up and the stock market's going up and my material wealth is going up and we need to be enriched.
And I get to fight racism. Well,
right. And I get to go have exotic food as if a non-Italian never cooked an Italian meal.
I mean,
right?
The Japanese get along just fine with the best food of all kinds in the entire world. And
I was like, what about all exotic food? I'm like, you're telling me you never went to an Italian restaurant that was staffed by non-Italians? Like,
that just shows me you can't read a recipe book.
We bring really unique food to your culture that doesn't understand that we have starchy things, and dinner is really important for us. Right. Anglos don't eat dinner together, and they don't eat starches, without being enriched.
Yeah, we don't eat with our food. You get the extra flavor,
I
by
gotta
eating
say,
with
though,
your hands.
I think that the Indian question is going to be the one that's the most politically easy to deal with because they're relatively new to the country. We're talking like the last 20 years or 30 years or whatever. They are not in Hollywood. They've not created any art. They don't have a victimhood narrative. There's nothing. I think the fundamental issue is, and we got to be honest, and I think I was telling somebody else about this. The fundamental reason why we would be able to deport so many Indians is because they give white women the ick. And you give white women the ick, they will literally, like, I don't care. I've known very liberal women who absolutely hate Trump, but when you talk about Indians, they turn into the most far-right nationalists you'll ever meet because they've all been hit on in the most crass way by some gross, Indian who has the social skills. I'm sorry, but like a 5-year-old white kid has more game than these guys. They think that
because it's not just that; it's that they think that they can say, like, they will say whatever they have to say. It literally does not matter what that is. They will say whatever they think they have to say to accomplish what they want to accomplish. I mean, this is the biggest issue here. I mean, I feel like in terms of dealing with them, right? Because the entire reason Dinesh D'Souza exists, why anyone paid attention to him or watched his 3 terrible films about Barack Obama, is because white people weren't willing to stand up and say things that were true, but politically extremely, they would make people mad at you. They would make people give you the side eye. They would give people the ick. It's not until you can stand up there and say what needs to be said, damn the consequences, that you can get rid of all of these people whose political utility is literally just saying true things that white people can't bring themselves to say.
Right. No, I think that I think that that's something that's actually going to get political support is when you just say, yeah, no, you guys need to go. And I think that Trump is the kind of guy who could get away. And what's funny is I think that JD Vance could also get away with it and just say, yeah, I'm the exception to the rule or whatever it is. But I could see Trump saying, yeah, you're going because you give our women the ick. And the just level of meltdown that would occur would be so funny because what do they say? Or he could just say, you've taught, they've probably interacted with more white women through adult films than they've ever interacted with a woman in real life, like a white woman.
No, that's exactly why they behave that way. You're 100% right.
They think that that's how reality is. And so I'm not the one who came up with that. I just was seeing some like comments and commentary by people who actually dealt with them. I dealt with them in some extent, but it's crazy how I'm hearing these horror stories of like how they've taken over sections of the like Dallas. I've been told that Dallas has basically become some like, Indian area. And the region
there was a viral clip of a guy whose entire neighborhood was bought out by Indians, and he filmed them and was basically like, listen, I want to live in Texas, not India. This is not acceptable. And they brigaded his small business and left a bunch of fake negative reviews. They went after him with every legal avenue they had. And his church did not stand by him. His church kicked him out over saying, I don't want my country to look like a totally foreign, godless place.
This goes back to the issue I say, like, a lot of churches and pastors are just communist. I'm trying to think of a polite word to describe, but they're just, I don't have a high opinion of.
They're stooges is what they are, is the reality of this. You just have to accept that, like, they're not going to back you up.
I'm going to be really harsh right now, and I say this from experience. So, for people who disagree, it's like, well, great. My experience trumps your opinion. But they're gamma male mama's boys who wanted to get status, and they got status by reading a bunch of theological books and saying yes throughout seminary, and that's how they got. And then they get in a position of power over other men of accomplishment at a young age, and basically just get to say, I'm your spiritual leader, so you have to do what I say, and everything. And it depending on what church denomination, but like, I just don't have a high opinion because I've met enough of them where I'm like, yeah, this is a guy who couldn't say no. And so he took the path of least resistance, which is becoming a pastor or becoming some sort of spiritual leader. And then somebody else actually takes a stand where they lose something. And their biggest concern also is like, their concern is making money and being able to pay their bills and support their family. It's not about, doing what's right. And it sounds cynical, but I'm not a spring chicken. I've been around, I've seen things, and that's kind of how it works. And so for a lot of people, I would recommend I highly recommend, unless you really intimately know your spiritual leader or pastor, don't assume that they're going to back you up when you're saying things that any normal American 50 years ago would have said.
I mean, this is where we see things like the bifurcation that is going on with, young men returning to far more orthodox and traditional churches as opposed to young women. Young men are becoming more radical as a whole with all the issues we've been talking about tonight. I mean, the future really is, especially in like the right-wing movements, belongs to those who just show up, in the sense of like, well, eventually, I mean, we were talking about JD Vance earlier being the first like major millennial like right-wing politician in the American context. I mean, can anyone really think of another one? I mean, I don't think so. None of them are really coming to mind here.
Rubio, I guess.
Oh, is he a millennial? I picture him as Gen X.
Is he a millennial or is he an X? Yeah, I'd have to look that up.
I'd have to look up his age.
One thing I want to say about JD Vance that people are like, oh, he married an Indian. It's like, guys, when you grow up in a dysfunctional situation like he did, where your mom basically wants to kill your whole family, from what I've understood, I haven't read his book, but it's very common for guys who grow up in those kind of environments to marry outside their race because it's a way of breaking ties with, he could have married some dysfunctional girl from the same background. And so that's a way of like severing ties. So it clearly, the fact that he's like weighing in on stuff and he knows and understands. And so I don't think that he's going to identify with his wife's side of things. I just think when you have to look at context. A lot of guys marry outside their race when they go through bad backgrounds. I'm trying to think of who else comes to mind. There was a couple of people where I'm like, yeah, they had bad childhoods. They came from dysfunctional families, and their way of getting away from it was to marry into a different context.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I could buy that in his case. I mean, listen, for myself, listen, like I'm not going to go out there and say like, oh yeah, this is like a really like amazing standard that everyone should uphold, right? But let's be real here, okay? It's different when men do it than when women do it. That's that's just a simple fact of the matter, all right? And that's like the end of the discussion. Men and women are different. Is this like ideal? I mean, not really, but is it also like the end of the world?
It's a bigger red flag when Amy Comey Barrett adopts Haitian children.
That's 100. That's absolutely way worse than what JD Vance has done. Because
if JD Vance said we're going to deport a bunch of people and his wife threw a temper tantrum, he's like, hey, I'm in charge. I'm the head of the household. That's how it is. With Amy Coney Barrett, that's a pathological altruism, which I think we've seen play out with her. And so with guys, they're able to like make. I say this was like, yeah, I know some guys who married women from foreign backgrounds where they're now invested in their wives' foreign affairs, which, oh boy. People always talk about interracial marriage. And I'm like, guys, it's not just like the genetic or whatever. It's like, if your wife is very passionate about something that's going on in her country, she's going to try and make it your passion, right? And I don't want to marry a girl who's going to suddenly say, hey, here's this thing going on 10, 20,000 miles away from you that you should care about because you're married to me. It's like, no, honey, I'm too busy caring about what's going on in my country. And if you're not caring about that, I don't know what to say.
I think the most charitable read of JD Vance, right, is like, because he met his wife at Yale, I want to say, maybe not. I want to say at Yale when he was at the law school there, and like he was involved in pride marches back then. JD Vance figured out the direction that this country was going, and basically was like, yeah, we can't do that. We got to do a hard right turn, or this thing is not going to be solvent. So I think the best way of reading him is to say like he genuinely believes that, regardless of his past or the fruits of his past. I think it's pretty clear that he genuinely believes this stuff. He's sacrificed a whole lot to come over to the other side, so to speak.
I don't think people fully realize what it's like for a guy. And I know some people are very cynical about JD Vance and like his how he got to be where he is. And I'm like, okay, at some point you don't get to the position of power without cutting a few deals or working with people. So I'm not gonna I'm not going to dismiss that, but this is a guy who came from like a very humble background and who should have been set up to fail. Like he shouldn't be vice president of the United States. He's literally the anti-millennial. He grew up in a horrible childhood and is now like next in line for the most powerful political position in the world. Most millennials grew up with a very ideal childhood and are now dealing with the fact that their adult lives are infinitely worse than how they grew up. And that's just reality. Like I look back at my childhood in the 90s, it probably was infinitely better than anything JD Vance was going through. I didn't have to deal with a drug alcoholic mother and a single mother. And I literally grew up on Main Street of my hometown, which now has become one of the most unaffordable cities in America. And it's overrun by foreigners. So I think that for him, people need to understand the context of where these guys come from. And if you don't understand them and you misinterpret what their behavior.
Yeah, I mean, Also, like, the other thing is, you don't even have to go even as far, even though you very well might be right, TJ. You don't even have to go down that route of like trying to understand like where the guy came from and such. But like, I just look at it this way. It's like, listen here. I mean, if there was like a guy who was like an OGC, like a brother of the OGC or something, like a guy who like I'm really tight with and stuff, and he's one of my friends, and like he married like a Japanese chick, it's like, oh wow, I guess I'm going to disown him now. It's like, just fucking shut up, guys. Like, this is just like Looney Tunes land. All right. I mean, that's
I think the issue, honestly, the biggest issue I've ever brought up with people about interracial marriage is like, okay, you're in love with a girl from another race, but your kids are going to have to deal with the dual identity issue.
yeah, it's
And how
definitely a
would we do
problem.
that? What's
Yeah,
funny is Nikki Haley's son is this. It's funny. Like they either become total shit libs or they become this far right. But I think that's what happens is the girls become very, I don't know. It's interesting where they can get away with so much shit because nobody can call them racist because they're not, they're not fully white, and they can always go behind that. But it's just your kids are going to have to deal with that dual identity.
Yeah, they're on the borders of whiteness.
Yeah, they're going to have to come to terms with what they are and decide what they are. And when you have it's not like you're from Scotland and you're marrying an Irishman or an Englishman. We're like Winston Churchill's mother, I think, was American. And so he was half American, but nobody thinks of Winston Churchill as half American because he didn't identify with that. And it wasn't disparate enough in differences to where it affected him. Whereas if you marry someone from a very different race, and that's what's so funny about a lot of these these far left fanatical women, these leftists, they all married white guys. Kishama Sawant from Seattle married a white guy. Ocasio-Cortez, yeah, she married a ginger, which and then a bunch of other.
Well, the question becomes who's assimilating who, right? That's the relevant question that we're dealing with here. Because, Ocasio-Cortez may have married a guy who looks vaguely like Scots-Irish or something. But we know what the politics of those two individuals are going to be, what direction they would take the country to the degree that they have any say in the matter.
Right.
And so the concern from any direction is who's assimilating who.
Right.
In terms of J.D. Vance specifically, the only real thing that you can go on is the fruits of the man, what he says and what he does. And over the last couple of years, I'd say you'd be hard pressed to find someone who has spoken and fought more for pushing the country in the right direction.
Right. I think that he's probably going to be the next president. Who knows? But I'm anticipating that he is going to be the next president because the thing is, he doesn't trigger people the way that Trump does. There's something about his personality that just gets people I know who just get whatever he says, they just go completely insane. I don't hear a lot of people complain about JD Vance or say anything about him. And the fact that he's married to an Indian is like, they can't go after that. And then I think the other thing is he says things in a very non-antagonistic way. Trump loves riling people up. Vance just says things. I remember he was answering a question about Thomas Massey, and he gave a very just reasonable response. He's like, I like Thomas. I called him when his wife died, but he votes against the party on critical issues. And it's at some point, it's not about him personally. It's about how he's doing his job. Like nobody could really say a whole lot to what he just said. So I could see JD Vance just calmly and rationally explaining why we need to deport 100 million people, and people will go along with it. I mean, that's the hope, right?
I don't know. I don't think that explanation is what people are interested in. The reason why Trump is able to do the whole Trumpism without Trump, I'm very skeptical that anyone can do Trumpism without Trump. Because the thing that makes him special is that he is supremely entertaining. Okay. The American people are not interested in sane policy proposals. They want to be entertained. And so it remains to be seen whether JD Vance will be more entertaining than whatever monstrosity the Democrats run.
Well, and that's the problem. They can't. It's like I remember somebody was talking to me about, I had somebody ask me, do you think Trump would have lost if they had run a white guy? And I go, they did. His name was Joe Biden. He was so senile, they pulled him out. And they ran a candidate that nobody did. Notice nobody talk. It's kind of fascinating how you have these political candidates once they lose, they disappear. Like John Kerry, nobody talks about him. John McCain, nobody really talks about him either. Mitt Romney, nobody talks about him. But even when Donald Trump,
Kamala Harris, when is the last time anyone heard anything about her?
because they're not important. Whereas Barry Goldwater lost spectacularly against LBJ, but he's still remembered. People know who he is. Pat Buchanan didn't even get the nomination. He's still remembered, right? Like a lot of these people had a lot of influence despite never getting elected to office. They didn't even get the nomination, but it's because they were doing things that were more important than winning an election. And so I think that's going to be, I don't see JD Vance as being a Buchanan, but I'm just wondering to what extent the Democrats cannot run a candidate that's confident because they all have to be controlled. Like Kamala Harris, does anybody think that she was calling the shots, or Biden? I don't think Biden got to decide what brand of underwear he wore. What brand of diapers he wore. Like the guy could barely, he looked like that angry ventriloquist dummy from that one comedy guy, right? He could barely mutter. It's just so funny that for 4 years we were subject to this humiliation of this is a guy who's clearly senile and we're supposed to pretend he's making decisions. And his wife had the audacity to praise him on camera and say, "You did such a great job. You answered every question." It's like, this is what you say. This is what you say to a 5-year-old daughter or son who is retarded.
Your picture's going right on the refrigerator, Joe.
Yeah,
Thanks for coloring it in.
Don't say this to a grown-ass man, dude. And I just turn to people and go, I refuse to take anyone seriously who thinks that he has been making any decisions. You're telling me that you're dishonest. He's so senile. His wife is praising him for answering questions as if in kindergarten I was asked questions and I can answer them. Like, what kind of an accomplishment is that? Anyways,
a big one for the president of the United States, apparently, or former one. So,
well, when you're a Manchurian candidate.
Yeah. All right. Let's power through some of these super chats. And again, for everyone in the audience, we are indeed all money raised on tonight's show will go to our dear friend, Mr. George Bagby. Everyone check the link in the pinned comment and in the chat as well. And you too can help support a fellow friend in need. But starting right up at the top here, we got Mr. Solid Snake, who has once again snuck behind enemy lines under his cardboard box to get the first super chat in of the night. Thank you very much, sir. For $5, he says, "Evening, gents. I just finished Storm of Steel by Ernst Younger. What an amazing story he has. Hope your move goes well, Mr. Bagby. Salute from the HRS." That is
Real American
Society. Yeah, damn right, he's a real American. Yes. Yes, thank you for supporting Mr. Bagby. I'm sure it will go to very good use.
Younger is great. You all should check out more of his work.
Bong Waterly for $5 says, "Yeehaw!" All right, yeah, I dig it. I dig it. He's a real American for sure. All right. Daryl Armentrout for $10 says, Deo Vindis. I don't know the Latin. Somebody else. No.
Deo Vindice, I think.
Alrighty.
It's a phrase that was spoken during the Civil War. Basically, God vindicate us.
Ah, nice. All right. And we got Mr. Seasider sends us $10 as he does every week. This time it's a little bit different. It's not salutes. It's a OGDC with a bunch of babies and I don't know. I don't know what you're doing with this one, man. I like it was just the salute. Go back to normal. I don't like change. All right, we got TK sends us $10. Check out Mike Benz's work. Yes, he does a great job. These people are imported from places the gay is doing ops in. Basically, the intel agencies are using state welfare as USAID style funding mechanisms for rebel groups.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Shocked to discover gambling here.
Yeah. I mean, not a surprise at all. I mean, but isn't it something like it was 15 to 20% of Somalia's GDP was sent in remittances? Just from Minnesota.
We just need to invade them again, and this time we're not bringing in the choppers. We're bringing in the AC-130 gunships and tanks. We're gonna do the job that Bill Clinton couldn't do.
Yeah. We're gonna get those skinnies.
And we're gonna put a giant monument for those two. What were they? Special Forces or Delta?
Yeah, I think they're Delta guys.
I think they were Delta guys.
We're gonna put it right exactly where they were killed. We're gonna put a giant, and we're gonna make it so massive that they are technologically incapable of removing it.
Not only are they going to pay for it, but that statue just grew by 10 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Aramaic Discourse for $5. He says, I leered everything I knowed from the smartest Somali leering center. Yes, I'm sure many people did as well. Sir Blank for $5. Imagine having the intelligence of a dark, the athletic ability of a woman, the social skills of a parrot, and the smell of a donkey. That's dots. Oof. Oof. No comment. No comment.
Woof.
Not the official statement of the club. Sir Blank again sends $2. Says my fiance is white rice, white adopted Chinese. Fang going on over there. Nice. We got Ski Bum 220, frequent super chatter, friend of the show. Thank you very much, my friend, for $100. I'm sure that will go very well to Mr. Bagby. He will appreciate it. He says, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Hope things get better for you, sir, and hope this helps. Salute the OGC. We'll take it.
Real Americans.
Sir. Yes, you are indeed a real American. All right. No, I'm not Grim from Red Hood for $2. You answered every question. Now face the wall. That's funny. Very funny indeed. Well, that's us all caught up on the super chats here. Gentlemen, as we're winding down this conversation, one of the last things I wanted to bring up here is just all of the stuff that we're talking about with what is going on with Minnesota, these leering centers, all the fraud. I mean, people were talking about this for a long time, but it really only came to the forefront because it wasn't an expose done by Fox News. It wasn't somebody covering it on CNN. It wasn't even anybody in the administration. It was just citizen journalists, basically from people on Twitter, breaking this story out into the open. So, I mean, I know a lot of people are quite down on Twitter lately, definitely since the prevalence of slop in the last year. I do want to say that I still think it is very important for guys like us to be on that platform. You would not have stories like this. You would not have the shooting of Renee Good. You would not have this escalation that may very well result in the Insurrection Act being brought forth if it wasn't for Twitter and if it wasn't for our guys being on the platform and for our own guys to just take citizen journalism into their own hands. So, Mr. Martinell, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, I'm kind of torn because I think citizen journalism, and I've written an article for Old Glory Club about this. I'm supportive of it. I think that it's important, but it's kind of like infantrymen on the front lines, but you also need military intelligence officers doing stuff not on the front lines. You need your support staff. You need a lot of people doing other stuff. So it's important, and I encourage people to do it. I just think it's by itself, it's not sufficient. There's other the kind of work that I do is important, but it requires being fully employed to do it, and not just. So there's some. I point this out. There's some citizen journalists where they screenshot a government website, they post it on social media, they make a comment, and then it goes viral. Well, that's nice, but there's a lot of other digging that I've been doing that is important. It's just not in keeping with like the gotcha, sexy, go viral, 30 million views stuff. So I don't want to discourage anybody. I encourage people to do it if they can, but just understand that we need people doing the kind of work that I'm doing, and there just aren't enough of us. So, and I don't have like tangible solutions. Just I know that there's so much going on that we need more people. And so, but I on the other hand, I turn to people in my profession and say, you guys aren't encouraging enough people to join it, and this is kind of why. So anyways, that's kind of my rant. But I did write an essay for the Old Glory Club that people can read on their Substack about this issue.
All right. Well, people can definitely look that up. Casually, I just wanted to check very briefly because now the sun has gone down in Minnesota, for tonight, and I just wanted to quickly check. If people want a good account to check out for this, RedHawk does a pretty good job with this. But already there are protesters who are blocking ICE vehicles in the street, and ICE are drawing weapons on people to get them to move and get out of the way. So. It doesn't look like anyone's stopping anytime soon, even though it is quite cold outside. So, I mean, I haven't seen that one on the soundboard for a while. You really just never know what is going to come on the screen at any time. I do love it here. It's always a fun stream that we have. So, I don't know. I mean, very interesting times. I mean,
yeah, we are potentially going through. I mean, we're going through probably some of the most pivotal moments in American history in terms of, who knows, we might be going through the same way Rome went through the Republic to the Empire. We might be seeing that going on right now. And, time will tell, but I do know that these are going to be times that are unprecedented compared to anything that's happened in the last, how many decades, but I think the thing is the question is, how does it benefit us?
Well, yeah, that's always the question to have. And you know what? This is one thing I actually wanted to bring up earlier is, isn't it just kind of amazing to see the amount of patronage networks the Democrats have for their client groups?
Oh, dude, we could do a whole episode on that where basically you could have some repeatedly convicted child molester, sex offender, rapist, who beat his mother and stole stuff from an old lady. He's still going to get patronage. Whereas on the right, if you say something that makes someone somewhere out there experience discomfort, you're basically a pariah. And that has to change. There's the lack of loyalty on the right to people who are loyal to them has to change. It has to change, and it's got to change some way. But that is one of the fundamental issues we're facing right now.
Oh yeah.
The only way to change something like that is to actually get involved in an existing organization, form the bonds of brotherhood, form the bonds of friendship. That is the only way to do this. The Democrats have of creating a vast network which is fleecing you. That's your money and the taxpayer that's being fleeced to give to these people. The only answer that you have against this is unity, and that unity can only be forged by actually people that you. So all that to say, join the Old Glory.
Yeah. Absolutely. You must get involved on the local level, get involved with your local chapters, get involved with your brothers who can help you in times of need that no doubt are coming in one form or another. And I think the other thing I'll say on this is like, even if we do get the good timeline, it's just good to have connections with people, man. Like, it is very valuable whether you're in a business or you need something done. It's just like a cost saving metric, if for nothing else, man. It's like, hey, I got a guy for that. You got to have your tribe, man, especially as a dude. No man is an island.
Well, I mean, this is a whole separate issue, but I think what happened with the atomization of the millennial white man is we have resorted, and I'm speaking about my peoples, the white millennial men, is we resorted to this very extreme self-reliance, hyper individualism, and atomization as a survival tactic. And I think the issue that's a lot of, and maybe even Gen Xers, I think the issue that they're going to struggle with, and we're all going to struggle with as a generational group, is the ability to shed that off when it's no longer necessary. Because the issue is that, it's been such a survival mode just to just get by, that they don't a lot. And I can say this from experience, they don't know how to collaborate anymore, because that's not been, they don't know what that looks like. Like, collaborating is a way to get fired or lose your job or be isolated or be taken advantage of. So men have to kind of, over a certain age and between a certain age, have to learn to rebuild trust in each other and with other people, instead of seeing everybody as a potential predator. And I think it goes back to that Compact magazine article, but I think that millennial men are really going to struggle with that when times change. It's like, great, you don't have to be, you're not an island anymore, and that's okay, but we'll have to see.
Indeed. One final thing I want to mention on this topic of patronage and whatnot is it is really, really important going into 2026 and beyond, where a lot of guys like us need to really reassess how we treat the GOP, in the sense of, we were talking about JD Vance being a millennial candidate, the first one that we can really think of on the right-wing side in the future. But you really just have to treat these guys like, okay, listen, we are the youth of the party. We're the base. The donor class of the Republican Party is entirely against our interests as the young men coming up in this thing. The attitude really needs to be going forward, fuck you, pay me. It has to be. People have put everything on the line for the Trump administration, and by extension, the Republican Party, right, in the last 10 years. People have lost their jobs. People have lost their marriages. People have lost their friendships. In some cases, people have died. It really just needs to be like, listen here, if the Democrats can put together multinational billion-dollar fraud schemes and give their people all these kinds of benefits, not just monetarily, but also just socially, like they have these racism, words, these magic word hammers they could just beat everybody over the head with. We really need to start getting something from these people. And you know what? It really just also needs to be in the future. It's just securing the bag is what everyone needs to be focusing on. It's like, listen here, I'm not going out of my way to get you guys elected just so you might be able to like throw some like cool edgy memes my way or something like this. We're not just like some weird, people sitting in the wilderness these days talking about our fringe ideas on like Odyssey anymore. Right. There are people who are in the administration who know our ideas, who listen to our ideas, who parrot our ideas. We have the Homeland Security account literally using memes for all of our guys almost on the daily at this point. It's like, we're not fringe anymore, man. And we need to stop being treated as such. Like, we are the next people coming up. Fucking pay me or I'm not working for you.
Well, that's going to be I think the great confrontation of our time is going to be older white men confronting young white men who are ready to have their time on the stage, and they are not going to give it up very easily. It's going to be a fight. I mean, we're gonna experience a war of two kinds. We're gonna experience a civil war that's generational, and then we're gonna have a war against foreigners who have been enabled by the older generation because, my house prices have gone, my house value's gone up, my stock market value's gone up, my 401k's gone up, everything's gone up, I'm benefiting. Why is my son, angry at me, right? I mean, I think that's probably going to happen at some point, where the fathers and sons will end up fighting each other over the future of the country, because to save the country, we're going to have to cause discomfort, God forbid, for the elderly generation that thinks they're entitled to stuff that is being paid.
To put a finer point on this, yeah, we're not a cooler, edgier version of Republicans. For those of you who have the talent to do it, you should be involved in your local GOP and even, state and federal. But you cannot trust Republicans. You can trust your friends. And you need those in order to be able to make any real headway in the Republican Party. They may be your allies, but you have to understand that if you are one of us, if you are one of these late sons of the Americans, you have a totally different position than most of these people, and you understand the stakes in a way that they just don't. And because of that, you need people like you who you can trust. Because these Republicans, the second that Donald Trump is gone, it is going to be an attempt to go back to the exact same business as usual that they had been running for the decade preceding Donald Trump. And we need to be in a position that does not happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
We've only got so many years before it's going to be the next couple of years are going to be very pivotal.
I mean, to put it simply, the GOP either needs to be conquered or it needs to be destroyed. Simple as. So
Carthage must be destroyed.
yeah. Exactly. All right. Why don't we wrap it up there, gentlemen? A last minute super chat has come in from Adam Keeney for $10. He says, "We're all getting jacked in 2026." Yes, indeed. If you want some help getting jacked, head on over to Axios Remote Fitness and Coaching. Link is in the description. And again, even though all the money that we're raising tonight for Mr. Bagby, which as I've been told now is well into the thousands of dollars, is actually past his point on the GoFundMe. Still, throw some more extra dollary dues to our friend Mr. Bagby. He could always use it. He's a great man, truly an intellectual titan of this sphere, good friend of the OGC. Everyone loves frequenting his bookstore at the national conference every year. Man does great work. So if you are still in the giving spirit of the Christmas season, definitely send some money over to Mr. Bagby. We're going to keep the link in the description. It's also still in the chat. So keep on sending money that way. All right, Mr. Brooks, do you have anything to promote, sir?
You should join the Old Glory Club. Aside from that, obviously, I did a cast recently on Woodrow Wilson. He is near and dear to my heart. I do apologize for the choppy audio in the beginning, but any of you who that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and check that out on the Old Glory Club's Substack.
Yes, definitely check that out. And Mr. TJ Martinell, thank you for coming on, sir. Definitely keep us updated as to what you find in your region. Hopefully we get some good news on that front, but where can people find more of your work?
I think the best thing to do is to go to Amazon.com and just type in my name, TJ Martinell, Martinell. It'll bring up my books. Some of them, I just got to tell you, are being pulled because the publisher that published them is going under, or they're making some changes. So I'm hoping to republish them, but they're still available, but that won't last long. And some of them I consider to be good books. You can also find me on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. Sorry, Elon. TJ Martinell 1. So you can find me on X. And obviously, Old Glory Club's account has tweeted about, mentioned my handle. So you'll be able to find me there. But yeah, that's kind of where I am for the most part. I also am an investigative reporter with the centersquare.com/Washington. So if you want to see my investigative reporting, you can find me there.
All right. Awesome stuff. Alrighty, everyone else, in the meantime, check out all the great stuff coming out on the OGC channel. We got Chapter House on Wednesdays, American Spirits is on Mondays. Check out the Substack where we have new posts coming out 3 times a week. And then, as always, check out the Old Glory Club website where you can find local chapters in your area. If there isn't one nearby, please send us an email at theoldgloryclub@gmail.com and we'll get you hooked up with other fellow men in your area. And we have one more chat that came in under the wire here. American Southwest for $5. Patronage. I have a few of Bagby's books, and I'm using one in my upcoming series. Thank you, Bagby, and thank y'all. Give this to GFM. Yes. Thank you very much, sir, to American Southwest from the New Mexico chapter. Thank you very much, sir. All right, everyone. We'll see you guys all next week.
When I pass on my good genes to my sons, they're going to join the old glory.